Hey, I'm Brandy Sorensen with Johnston Realty and ConverseCountyHome.com.
And I'm Tyler Johnston with Johnston Realty. And this is your Converse County market update for, well, it's March 31st. So just starting 1st of April tomorrow. So
Yeah.
April Fools.
So right now we still have 46 active on the market
Okay. And there was 8 homes sold in March,
in March. Yeah.
depending on when you watch this video. So this month was 8 sales.
Yeah. So
Still,
pretty
kind of steady.
I did see actually last year this same time there was also 46 on the market in Converse County.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of
Yeah.
being kind of average, I guess,
Yeah.
right now.
So same as last year anyway. So
It does feel busier, though,
yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah. There are people. Yeah.
Still people looking. I've seen some different properties go under contract lately that are still kind of out there. So then the new one's added, but
Yeah.
still
Just moving
stuck there
along.
at the 46.
Yeah, I didn't compare how much has been sold or anything.
Yeah.
Maybe next week we'll bring that and see
We'll see what we can do.
compared to last year.
Yeah.
So it's always fun to see.
It's interesting when you start pulling the numbers and finding everything out and kind of researching a little bit of the history. It's like somebody will ask me, purchase price versus offers type of thing. And statistically, in Douglas, it's always been an average of everything sells within 2 to 3% of the list price. Of course, there's some that sell over to account for closing costs and
Just
stuff
like
like
average,
that.
yeah.
But that's usually a good average.
Yeah.
So I always tell people that when they're saying, well, what's a good offer? I'm like, well, if you go statistics,
Right.
if you're in 2 to 3% of what they're asking, then I think that's a pretty good, solid offer.
Yeah. And again, that's case by case because sometimes it depends on how long it's been on or, the condition, that kind of stuff.
All the fun
When they-
things.
Yeah. But yeah, that is also really good to know what's in the market and what traditionally. So yeah, good to know. How was your weekend with the photography show?
The photography show was pretty cool. They changed it up from last year. Last year they had a lot of outdoor classes they actually held it over at Deer Creek. And this year was a little bit more classroom instruction.
Oh, okay.
So they did classroom instruction all day Saturday morning. I think Jen said kind of a rough estimate. They had about 70, 75 people come to the reception Friday night at the college
Nice.
and look at all the submissions that have been entered into the show. And then Saturday afternoon, the weather kind of ruined the plans. They had a field trip for everybody to go out to the grasslands
Oh, cool.
to do some landscape photography out
And that's
there.
of course when it got crappy.
Yeah, they're like just the mud and people that drove cars and didn't have trucks, and so that just kind of didn't work. But they made a couple of phone calls as the classes were going. It's an outdoor photography or a wildlife photography class, just a basic camera settings classes, and then some stories. One of the I don't remember his last name. His first name is Jimmy, but he guides like photography classes in Canada for polar bears.
Oh, wow.
So he had some of his photos and some of his stories from stuff like that. It was really cool. And like I said, then they pivoted real fast. The gal out at Natural Bridge let everybody in.
Oh, that's nice that
So-
they were able to do that.
Yeah, so they let everybody show up. They took down the cones. We got to go down into Natural Bridge. And Chris Lukes, I hope I pronounced that right, from Wyoming Camera and Casper, was there with ND filters teaching everybody long exposure landscape photography.
Oh, nice.
So everybody got to do that around the creek
Cool.
next to the bridge.
Yeah.
And then Sunday, Ron Hayes and Jimmy did a wildlife photography class, and we met at Grasslands at 5 a.m. to drive out of town and sit in a blind before sunrise for wild turkeys. And all of the turkeys landed behind us as we were facing this way.
That's what happens when you're hunting or taking pictures, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, but I mean, everybody still had fun. Nobody got upset.
Yeah.
It was just kind of the way it worked. And then Sunday morning, they did a digital art photography
Oh, okay.
or instruction class with Photoshop.
Uh-huh.
Jessica, I don't remember her last name either. And then Aaron Schwarzkopf
Oh, okay.
did pet photography.
Oh, cool.
And then in the afternoon, there was, I can't remember his name either. I think his name is Andrew from Casper. AZ Photography, I think is what his studio was. And he taught flash photography inside in a studio setting.
Oh, nice.
So a lot
There's a
of
wide
different,
variety of.
yeah. And there was a lot of beginners and first time people. So it was kind of cool because I got to experience all those different things. And then all the instructors were helping everybody with camera settings and all of that stuff. So it's a really cool thing
That's
that they
cool.
do every year.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Someday.
Would you guys?
There yet.
Not yet.
We just actually went down to Cheyenne. My son had a competition down there, a weightlifting grip strength competition. So
How'd he do?
he did good. Yeah,
Good.
did really good. So that was fun. Then we went to our in-laws and hung out. So it was a little weekend away, but
Nice.
yeah,
Got to decompress a little.
yeah.
It's always fun.
So I was wondering, last week we had the informational meeting, and I did the live on my page, my Facebook page. But there was quite a few things that were really interesting, and so we did talk about the increase in veterans benefits for your property tax. So this year it's instead of $3,000, it's $6,000, and then there's multiple things with your property tax. So make sure if you haven't, there was some paperwork sent in in the fall with your property tax information. So if you want, you can call and ask the treasurer's office, because you can actually stack these benefits. One of which is only going to be for a couple years. One, everybody gets it. One, if you've paid property tax in Wyoming for 25 years or more, whether you've gone out of state or not, as long as a total you've paid some property tax. And so you got to fill all that out. Anyway, so definitely I am going to also be giving information to my clients and friends and family as well. So if you want that, let us know. Otherwise, you can also just call the treasurer's office.
And it's just a great savings on your property tax that is rolling out. So.
And the reason they did that is because the price, in Wyoming, our property tax is based on the value. And because property values have gone up so much in the last few years, especially in certain areas, then it's really hurting people. So they made that distinction last year that property tax used to be the same residential as like commercial and stuff like that. But that changed, and then they wanted to do this. Also, something that was really good that I found out in that meeting was that only 4% of our county, Converse County's income, comes from residential. So even though we're giving these tax deductions and it's going to help each person, it's not going to hurt our county that much. Most of our income comes from like oil and gas leases or that kind of stuff. So that's really good for us. It really stinks for other counties where most of their income is. And so that's something adjustment wise, but that was really informational and helpful that we talked about that.
Yeah, and if you guys have any questions about that, or if you wanted to watch the whole presentation, like she said, she live streamed it.
Yeah.
And then it's also shared on both her Facebook page, Brandy Sorensen, and then also Johnston Realty. I shared it as well after you did the live stream.
Yeah, so that was really nice. They also did talk about the pronghorn hydrogen project that some are trying to pass. And the controversy about that, now they want more windmills, which are going to, change our landscape and because they want it to produce clean hydrogen, that and solar. However, the representative that came to talk to us about that also explained how easily we could change over the power plant in Glenrock to produce hydrogen and it's a different color hydrogen, but it's still a clean or a good source of hydrogen. And then, anyway, so there's a lot of people that are trying to get their senators, and April 3rd, this might come out after that, but
I'll try and get it done so it comes
okay.
up before.
And then either way, even if it's after that meeting, because that's not when they're that's just when they're talking about it. They're not going to vote on it yet, but make sure that your voice is heard. The other thing that people are saying is that a lot of our Wyoming's income also comes from tourism. And if that changes our views and stuff like that, how is that going to impact our tourism?
It's funny that you bring that up because somebody during the photography class, we had to wait at the top of the road before you could go down into Natural Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
And people were taking pictures of the hills and everything like that. And a resident from Glenrock said, make sure you take a picture now because it's going to be littered with wind turbines and solar. And I was like, what?
Yeah. It's
So that's something I'm behind on and catching
well,
up.
and the state they want to lease some land out to the state, and the senators are like, well, we have a duty to, bring in different income and make our lands, productive, not just make them beautiful, but it's like,
Still.
okay, is that taking away? Yeah, so.
Well, and it's one of those, I had somebody ask me, they had some property south of Glenrock up in the mountains, but it was just past the wind turbines. And so he's like, well, does that decrease the value? And I was like, not.
Do you feel like?
I feel it doesn't really decrease the value. I think the value is still there, but it's going to severely decrease the buyers.
Buyer, yeah.
Because the land still may be valued at that
But
in somebody's
wanting it for a view.
eyes. Yeah, but if they're wanting a view and they don't want to see that, then that's severely going to limit the buyers that are going to be okay with paying that price. And they're looking at wind turbines.
Right. And it depends on which way your house was pointed, like, and it probably is pointed to look out that way rather than.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Another thing they brought up was, zoning laws. Well, this is what happens when we don't have as many real strict zoning. It doesn't have to be approved because that's not part of our zoning.
Yeah, and that's one of those.
It's like, oh shoot.
Well, and that's
Catch-22.
Yeah, well, you can see that's the value of the land that has gone up so much north of Douglas on 59 because you get out of a subdivision and you're just in the county. Well, there's no zoning, so the oil and gas companies back, going back to 14 when they started coming up here, they're like, well, wait a minute. I can do a shop, I can do a laydown yard, I can do all of these things. I'm like, there's no zoning to permit or to say you can't. But then as that happened, that's when all those lands out that way started getting subdivided and developed using shops and commercial properties all coming up. And it raised the value so much.
Yeah.
Because now it is worth something because you can do whatever you want.
On 59, you can do whatever you want, and it's accessible for those big trucks. And
yeah, because you can go straight north, you can come down, hit I-25, and go to Casper, go south to Denver, Cheyenne. So yeah, I mean or the one thing I always tell people, okay, so you bought your house in the county, there's no zoning, so you want to put in this, that, or the other thing. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. But when that next buyer comes along and he's ready to purchase it and say they redid all the wiring, well, there's no code or anything that they had to follow. So you could be buying somebody else's do-it-yourself kit. And I mean, I've run into that a few times where it's...
Definitely get your inspections.
Yes, you want to get it checked out because... I mean, you feel great because you're like, oh, I can do whatever I want. It's mine. Yeah. People can't tell me what to do. That's true. But so did the person you're buying it from.
And you can't tell somebody else, your neighbor, what to do either. It's just a thing you gotta get used to. The other thing that I have run into recently is, well, you know how like family compound, have you paid attention? That family compound, people buy a bunch of property and then they put multiple houses on the property.
Yep.
and or even just another one. But it's harder to get financing sometimes for that.
Yeah, because once you've got two residential homes or living quarters on
Especially if
one
they have separate, um,
meters.
meters.
Yep,
Then it's looked at as,
commercial.
yeah, yeah.
So now you're looking at a 15-year loan, 20% down instead of residential
Or a
type of loan.
multifamily, so then you can't get it with an FHA loan sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you could get somehow some with an apartment or something like that, but not income producing, yeah, it can get really complicated. So,
And yeah, I mean, you can kind of, there are certain ways to go around it in Converse County. You can do what's the family exemption. So if you hold the property for a certain period of time for so many years, then you can subdivide it off. So like a
oh yeah,
husband's holding it, he can subdivide it off and give 5 acres to his wife. Or if it's a husband and wife, then they could give it to a child. And so then they can get around having to go through the survey and all the subdivision process with the county assessor and
that's right.
the
I
county
forgot about that.
planning. Or if you've got a commercial property, then you got to go through and you got to do the survey, you've got to do the subdivision plan, you got to go to the county commissioners, you got to have the meetings, and then they got to have the reading, and then the second reading before it's a pass. So I mean, you're talking a 4 to 6 month process. Could be actually, the last time I talked to somebody at the county, he said they've got so many, they're so busy right now, it could be a 5 to 8 month process of
All on
trying
more
start to finish to
expensive.
get it all done.
Yeah,
But if you qualify for the family exemption,
yeah.
then that's another way kind of to get
To
around
be able to.
that.
But make sure you know that before you buy the property
Yes.
and start putting stuff on.
Well, and also if you've got questions about stuff like that, the title office is great to call and ask and say, hey, this is where my property is located. These are, what are the covenants in this area? And I actually just dealt with a client. I had their home listed a few years ago. And they called and they said, we want to know, where did you read that in the covenants? Because they had an oil company who was interested in buying it to turn it into a commercial property. But in their covenants, it said no commercial use.
Oh wow.
But so they didn't sell, they kept the property, and now it's 10, 11 years later. And somebody else is coming into that area around their home and talking about putting in a trailer court.
Oh yeah.
And they could not, and then of course
But they couldn't. Yeah.
the homeowners are like, we don't want it, we don't want it. And he's like, there's nothing to say that I can't. But she remembered that.
Okay.
So she called me and she's like, hey, where did you
Where
find
do we
this?
find that? Yeah.
And so I called Janet at the title office. I said, hey, you guys did a title search for me. Do you still have it? She's like, well, I don't actually have it, but this is where it was located. Gave me the name
Okay.
of the
The
subdivision.
subdivision, so then you can.
So then I could pull up the covenants on their website and save them and send them off. And she was like, thank you, because now we don't want to live next to a trailer park.
Yeah.
We bought our house in the country so we could be
Right.
away from people. So
Yeah.
family compounds, commercial use, all of that stuff rolls into what
in your subdivision.
your subdivision, your covenants, all of that type of stuff. But in Converse County,
Yeah.
yeah, it said there's nothing to say that you can't do it,
Yeah.
but it will affect your resale.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we just lucked out. We ended up buying out in the county, and then my mom wanted to move in with us, and we were like, oh, I wonder if we could build a little granny. She calls it a granny pod. Another little tiny house.
Yeah.
For her. And I called, and they're like, yeah, you're in the county. You can do what you want. I was like, what? Oh, really? When we found that out, I was like, oh, cool. All right.
Yeah.
So, and then obviously I still wanted to do it the correct way, but, have a contractor, because I'm not a good DIYer. You're not somebody who wants me to do it. But anyways, so,
Nice.
yeah. All right. Well,
I think that's kind of all we've got for this week.
Yeah.
The Choice Gas program is coming up.
oh, yeah.
So you definitely need to be checking into that. Have you done much research on it?
Not a lot. I was new I've never lived in a place that had something like this. And then
Okay.
I also lived out in the county where we just have propane tanks. So I was like, what are we talking about? I had to have it explained to me when I came to Douglas area. So,
Hmm.
yeah, go ahead and tell.
I'm really bad at it because I usually I don't pay enough attention, which is probably not good. But it rolls around every year, and I'm just like, okay, well, just
Yeah,
fill it out, send it in, or
fill
I
it out.
just don't even send anything in.
But I did see that the people who normally would get a bunch together, they're not doing it this year here in Douglas.
Okay.
And so then there was somebody else I saw it on, I'm pretty sure it was the Douglas Mamas Facebook page.
There's always information there.
Yeah, yeah. So if you want, just reach out to, I can send you the link to that because I saved it for clients and stuff.
But when is that? It's coming up, isn't it?
I know that it's coming up. I don't know when the deadline is because I don't get any paperwork.
Yeah,
So
'cause you're out
we'll
there.
let you know.
We'll look it up. We'll update you on that on the next
Yeah.
week when we do the update next
Yep,
week.
for sure. So, anyways, if you guys have any questions about what's happening in the county or you would like us to highlight, make sure you let us know.
Thanks.